guys, it's Ty with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily, and I want to talk about the speed with which you train your dog. I was thinking about it this morning because I was working with a client, and we've got their dog in for training, and their dog is in for training to learn some service dog work and things like that, and get ready to, to help them by going in public and going with them places. And the dog's young, so the dog's not, fully ready to take on everything just yet. But the dog's about 7 months old, and they brought the dog in, probably about a month ago. And their comment today was kind of the first time they'd seen the dog working, in the last month. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe how different she is in just a month." And then as we were in the store, I honestly didn't even realize the dog was 7 months old at the time. I kind of thought she was older for some reason. I thought she was 9 or 10 months. But anyways, we went into a store, a very busy store, with all sorts of distractions. It's a thrift store. It's a giant thrift store. And so there's tons of people, lots of weird types of smells, slippery floors, etc. It was this dog's first time being handled by the new owner. One of the first times. They had bought the dog, and then a couple weeks later the dog came to us. And so anyways, all these things would, typically converge against you in your efforts to have a really well-trained, obedient dog. We're talking young dog, new handler, stuff like that. And the dog did phenomenal. And there's areas to improve, of course, but the dog did great. The owner's like, "Wow, this is great." And it made me realize that, it's something I've realized before, but it kind of reminded me of the fact that balanced training, or what we sometimes call stabilized training, is faster, and faster can often mean good. Now, when I say faster, what I mean is if you kind of juxtapose, it's a big word for a guy like me, if you kind of juxtapose balanced training. When I say balanced training, I'm referring to a type of training where we use a lot of positive motivation in addition to proper correction. And so when you kind of compare that against, kind of the more new school of just using treats and what some people might call pure positive or what have you, when you kind of compare them to each other, what you'll often see is that balanced training goes a lot faster. Now, the reason why is because when all you're doing is offering treats, you have to work at a very long threshold from distractions. So when I say that, for example, if you're using treats and no corrections, and your desire is to be able to take a dog into a store, well, it might take you months and months before you even get there, because you have to get the dog, maybe you take the dog 100 feet from the entry of the store, and the dog sees people and is super excited, and you have to try to get their interest in treats, and they're like, "Well, I'm not interested in treats when I'm this close to a person, so all right, we got to go back to 110 feet and, work with the dog that way." And then, then we're going to be all right. And so we start at 110, then we get down to 100, then we get down to 90. And so you can, in theory, you can train a dog using just positive methods. But like I say, it's so much more slow going because that's just one example. But life is distraction, right? And so maybe you're trying to fix, the dog being good at the doorbell. Well, you might have to do tons and tons and tons of repetitions, far away from the doorbell, gradually get closer, and gradually, get to where it's the doorbell and knocking or whatever. Or maybe you're trying to fix aggression. And so, the dog is aggressive when it sees something 200 feet away. And so you've got to start at 205 feet and gradually work your way down. So if you're not using any sort of correction, really the only way of getting to your goal is by doing so much desensitization and counter conditioning and a ton of this. And so what happens to the dog in the process? In the process, it takes way longer, and so it's more stressful for the dog long term. Now, this is something I have talked about before to a degree on one of these podcasts, but I'm coming at it from a different angle now and helping folks realize that faster can be good. Now, my mindset is that just because something's faster doesn't necessarily make it good. I'd rather have a hamburger that took 20 minutes to make than, a hamburger that, fast food hamburger that took, 30 seconds to make or something like that. And so faster doesn't always mean good. But when we're talking about dog training, faster with proper techniques can often be good, because what we're talking about is getting the dog to the goal sooner, which means we've got an owner that's able to deal with the dog sooner, and we have less dogs that, get sent off to shelters or get put down or things like that. And then also, like I say, from the dog's perspective, just a great deal less cumulative stress in not asking the dog to do a billion repetitions when, let's say we're doing a balanced approach, or we're trying to get the dog close to that store, and we get 100 feet, and the dog's like, no, I'm not going to do that. We give a little correction, add a little bit of reward on the other side, get a little bit closer. In 1 or 2 sessions, you can get from 100 feet down to the entry of the store, rather than literally with just pure positive. It might take, dozens and dozens of sessions to get there. So faster is not always better, but in the case of dog training, if you're using proper balance methods, faster is absolutely going to be better for your dog and for you and for the owner. Well, yeah, you're probably the owner, but from a dog trainer's perspective, better for the owner.